Hi, welcome back to Crime, Mystery, and Mayhem. Today's true story is going to be about Emitt Till, a young colored boy who grew up in the 1940s in Chicago. Emitt Till was the only child of Mayhem Till. His father died when he was just 2 years old in the Army. It's said that the only thing that the Army sent back to Mayhem Till was just his ring, nothing else, no other possessions. But I'm assuming, back then, being in such a racist time, there's no telling. I mean, who's to say that however they said that he died is the real way that he died? So I also think that, someone should make a documentary on Emitt Till's father as well. Okay, moving forward, Emmett Till was a young boy, bubbly, bright, smart, you know, whatever you could imagine that an awesome child could be. When Emmett was just 14 years old, he was attending seventh grade at his school. He would be kind of like a class clown. It always made everyone laugh. Rumor said that he would also even pay other children to tell funny jokes so he can just get a crowd and, just get everyone, into it. Back then in Chicago, things were segregated, but they were not as bad as like Mississippi. Like their segregation, there were colored water fountains and white water fountains, colored restrooms and white restrooms. But being colored, you can walk with your head held high. You had a personality about yourself. You had an opinion. You actually mattered back then in Chicago. So one day, Mamie's brother, he lived in Mississippi at the time. He came to Chicago to invite Emmitt and his cousins back to Mississippi, to just see how everything was there. Emmitt agreed. He really wanted to go. He wanted to find out and see what was going on. And to him, this was going to be like an entirely different world. So, yeah, he wanted to go. Mamie, she loved her son so much, so she did give him a warning and let him know, listen, Emmitt, Chicago is entirely different from Mississippi. Mississippi, you are not allowed to walk on the same sidewalk as a white woman. You are not allowed to look at a white woman. If anyone of white color addresses you, you look down. And Emmitt is just kind of like, brushing it off like, oh, mom, everything is going to be okay. His personality that just made him so outspoken and so outgoing will, kind of just made what his mom was saying kind of brushed it off. But, his mom loved them, so she kept pushing it on them, that I think in our reality, she probably really didn't want him to go because she knew that the dangers of Mississippi. She didn't want her son to become a part of it or, to become a, a victim of its, oh my goodness, Mississippi. I remember I watched this movie called Mississippi Burning. I don't know if any one of you have ever heard that. And it's like, oh my goodness. It's like, even though I'm sure things are not quite like that today, there's still a lot of racism going on in the world. So it's just the thought of it. Yeah. But moving on. So the next morning, Mamie took Emmitt and his cousin down to the train station so they could make their way to Chicago. Their trip costed approximately $11. As Emmitt was getting ready to board the train, like he was so excited to go, he almost forgot to give his mom a hug. His mom stopped him in his tracks and was like, get back here. Give me a hug. Where are you going? And she's just like, how do I know I'm never going to see you again? Oh my goodness. Like when she said that, that touched my heart because it's like, in my mind, maybe she, kind of had a feeling in her heart or, maybe, oh my goodness, like what if something does happen to my son, but she can't keep him home because he's 14 now. And back then, when you were young, you can pretty much leave, I guess, whenever you are ready. People were emancipated, like, at a really early age. They can pretty much just go get on the train without adult supervision and just be on their way. as far as today, you know, you kind of need an adult with you to do everything. But so before he got on the train, he gave his mom his watch and a ring that he had on his finger from when his dad died. He kept that to be able to show, you know, the boys in Mississippi what a cool gift that, you know, his dad had left him after his death. So he gave his mom, you know, a goodbye hug and kiss, and they said they would miss each other. And him and his cousin, they got on the train. So making it to Mississippi, you know, the boys, they pretty much stayed out, had fun. They worked in the cotton fields from time to time, made a couple of dollars to be able to buy candy and food, you know, to be able to get by. They went swimming. They just did, you know, things that average kids would do at that age. So later on that day, they end up going to Roy Bryant, Roy Bryant's store. Roy Bryant was a grocery worker. He owns a grocery store. Him and his wife, Caroline, and they also lived in the back of the store with their smaller sons. They owned this store, and this was a neighborhood store. They would sell to like other colored people or like people who like own plantations, would sell them like, you know, tools that they needed for their yards or their fields and everything. But this in particular day, Emmitt and his cousins, they were there buying candy and, you know, pops and stuff, you know, just being kids. There were also other kids out in their neighborhood on the sidewalk playing with their toys, you know, just, you know, being a child different now. So Mamie goes to court. She goes to court, you know, for the death of her son. And even though the court has all of this evidence that puts JW and Roy at the crime scene, and they were even literally telling people about what they'd done to Emitt Till. Do you know that these jurors literally went to go and make their decision? It took them over an hour to make a decision, but they wasn't back there brainstorming on, oh, if they were wrong or if they were right or guilty. They were back there drinking pop, like, let's just sit back here in this room so we can make it seem, you know, like we're discussing this, but we know we gonna get them off. We know we gonna say not guilty, but we just gonna sit back here and chill and drink pop and eat donuts and stuff and make it seem like we put a whole lot of effort into this. So as the jurors came out of the room, what few black people who were allowed into the courtroom, they were standing against the wall because they were not allowed to sit down, of course. They immediately started to leave the courtroom because they knew that they were gonna say not guilty. So another guy who came there with Mrs. Till, he asked, why are the people leaving? And then Mamie, she starts to get her purse and start to get herself together. She was like, oh no, you don't want to stick around for this verdict. They're going to say not guilty. And sure enough, that's exactly what they said. Not guilty. It's crazy that as soon as Mrs. Till walked out of the courthouse, it was like a riot of white people like cheering JW and Roy on, like, yeah, not guilty, the monsters got off, we're happy, we're just as bad as they are, right? Mrs. Till, she fainted. She was heartbroken. Like, she it's like she kind of knew that was already gonna happen, but I think that somewhere in her heart she was kind of hoping and, you know, wishing on the star that things were going to be different. But back then in those times in the South, no. So after some time goes by, JW and Roy, you know, they're just out here telling people and discussing, you know, the incident with Emitt Till and how they beat that boy and how they tortured him and how he would like be screaming out for you know, his life and please stop, and how he didn't understand why come they were doing what they were doing. They were literally making a mockery out of this, making jokes. Like, you would see like the little white kids like walking around the neighborhood making jokes about this incident here, making their face look the way Emitt face looked, you know, in the videos, which, oh my goodness, like, I cannot believe this. How can you raise your children to be like this? You know, we're supposed to be breaking traditional curses, and that's what type of stuff that they're doing, teaching their kids how to be monsters. And then when their kids grow up and commit crimes, they're sitting back like, I don't know why little Timmy grew up to be like that. I mean, make it make sense. I feel just absolutely terrible for Emmett. I mean, well, she passed away in 2003, but wow, like, to be born in that time must have been a very scary time for Black people. I mean, now today you have a lot of interracial, you know, relationships, and that's perfectly fine. I feel like everyone gets along a whole lot better if they're with the person they feel most comfortable with. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. So, yeah. It's crazy. Like, they even had a colored boy, a Black guy, clean out all of Emitt Till's blood in the back of the truck. And sources said that while he was spraying and cleaning out the back of his truck, as he was tossing Emitt Till's shoe to the side, that he was just like laughing, like, yeah, this is Emitt Till's shoe. Like, what type of mind control could JW and Roy have on this Black guy to make him think that what he was saying and what he was doing was okay? I wonder if any of the relatives are still alive today of JW and Roy. It's said that Roy's wife Claire is still living today, and she later, like years down the line, later said that she lied about some things back then. But it's like, it's years later. People have lost their lives. You're gonna wait till no one can be convicted of their crimes. You're going to wait till an innocent boy has lost their lives to finally say something. So now that you're old and gray and you're on your way out, now you want to finally say something to try to ease this off your mind. No, still going to burn in hell for this, because you're responsible for someone losing their lives, and you're responsible for a grieving mother. Like, she had 2 boys. So imagine if the shoe was on the other foot. I wonder what the circumstances would have been. Like, I mean, it still would have been a sad case, even if it would have happened to their boys. But just the fact that people are animals. You know? Like, you did this to this little boy because he whistled at your animal. Your wife is an animal. She's an animal. Because what is that to tell? Oh, he whistled at me. Kill him. You're an animal. I wish nothing but the best for everyone. And I mean it. Like, I really do think that people need to get this racism nonsense out of their mind. You know, it's a scary world that we live in, especially if you want to have children and you give birth to your children. You realize, you know, I love my children so much, but then you realize the type of people that they're going to be sharing this world with. Then you go to feeling sad, and your anxiety gets to taking over, because all the stuff from our history is like a very traumatic, we live in a very traumatic place, and no one seems to care the way that they should, the way that they're supposed to care. Nothing has really changed. It's like maybe a few instances where we've been able to rise above the nonsense, but not no major changes. Emitt Till, his story sparked other stories, and his story even pushed the issue to the point where Rosa Parks was brave enough to not give up her seat on a bus to a white man. So even though his story is sad, it still encouraged a lot of other stories that ended out positive and opening up other positive doors for people of color, such as myself, and to you too, if you're of color and you're watching, you know. So with that being said, that's my story today. It's a very sad story, and since I've researched it, I can't get it off my mind. Every time I see a little black boy or a little brown girl, with the same skin color of mine, I wonder if they've been in a situation where someone has said anything racially or, negative to them that pertain to their skin color. Well, you guys have an awesome day and see you next Thursday. Thank you for joining me on my channel, Crime Mystery Mayhem.